Number 3. Latric Avery. In 2021, 44-year-old Latric Avery lived in Hackensack, New Jersey with her 67-year-old boyfriend, Stanley Gunter. Gunter went by the nickname Chief. He was an ordained minister and a Navy veteran. The couple's Facebook profile said they got engaged in December 2015. But in 2021, they were still not married. Latric Avery owned the home they lived in, and she was attempting to rent the upstairs apartment. On August 25, 2021, Gunter returned home around 6 p.m. and a potential tenant, Clarence Stokes, was with him. 42-year-old Stokes had a lengthy criminal record dating back 20 years. He had been convicted of crimes like burglary, drug possession, and criminal sexual contact. In 2011, he was arrested for sexually assaulting a victim under 16. About 2 hours after arriving, Gunter and Stokes started arguing over the cost of the rent. Suddenly, Stokes pulled out a knife and stabbed Gunter multiple times in the torso. He then turned his attention to Latric Avery. He stabbed her, but she managed to escape. She ran to the door of the main floor apartment. She pounded on the door. Unfortunately, Stokes caught up with her and continued to stab her. She fell to the ground, and he still continued to stab her. The neighbor's Nest doorbell camera recorded the murder. The footage of the murder has never been made public. A neighbor heard Avery being attacked and called the police. When the police arrived in the area, they found Stokes walking down the street. He was covered in blood. 44-year-old Latric Avery was found on the porch where she had been stabbed. She was taken to the hospital and she was pronounced dead shortly afterward. The police also found the body of 67-year-old Stanley Chief Gunter in the upstairs apartment. The apartment was splattered with blood. Gunter was pronounced dead at the scene. Stokes was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. At the time of this recording, 44-year-old Clarence Stokes is still awaiting trial. Number 2. James Rayl. In the summer of 2022, Alison Duckrow lived with her family in Sydney, a city of 20,000 people in west central Ohio. On July 30th, Alison got a call from her ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old James Rayl. Alison and Rayl had dated for a year, but broke up about a year and a half earlier. Rayl ended up leaving the following voicemail.
Hi, Ollie. It's James. I just wanted to reach out to you because I just wanted to see how you're doing and maybe hear from you if that would be alright, I guess. It's been a while since I've talked to you, and I don't know. I feel like it, I don't know what I feel.
The voicemail freaked out Alison and her family. The end of the relationship was not a mutual agreement. Alison said that Rayl had been mistreating her and was constantly telling her what was wrong with her. When they broke up, he told her no one else would love her. He then continued to harass her. So Alison blocked him on social media. Rayl moved to California. But the move was temporary, and he had recently returned to Sydney. The morning after getting the voicemail, Alison and her mother, Stacy, went out. They returned home around 11 a.m. and Rayl was parked outside their home. Stacy and Alison got into their home and locked the door behind them. Then 22-year-old James Rayl walked up to the door and rang the doorbell. Stacy and Allison's father, Mitchell, told Rayl that Allison didn't want to talk to him and that he should leave. Rayl didn't listen, so Mitchell retrieved his 9mm handgun. Meanwhile, Allison called 911. She told the 911 operator, quote, "There's some guy on my front porch and he won't leave. He's got his hands behind his back," unquote. Then Rayl started to test the handle to see if the door was unlocked. Mitchell warned Rayl that he had a gun. Then Rayl slammed his shoulder into the door several times. He managed to force the door open. Just as Rayl forced open the door, Mitchell fired 3 shots at him. Rayl was hit 3 times. He managed to walk to the driveway, where he fell to the ground. Allison told the dispatcher, quote, "He broke through the door, and my dad shot at him," unquote. The commotion drew out several neighbors. One of them approached 22-year-old James Rayl, who was lying motionless in the driveway. The neighbor said that he was unarmed and looked dead. As they waited for the first responders, Allison tried to comfort her father. She is heard on the 911 call saying, quote, "Dad, there's nothing you could have done. You saved my life," unquote. First responders arrived at the home 7 minutes after Allison called 911. During that time, no one attempted to help James Rayl. The pathologist determined Rayl was hit with 3 shots, 2 in the shoulder and another in the back. The gunshot to the back was what killed him. The district attorney wanted to charge Mitchell Ducro with manslaughter. The day after the shooting, the district attorney presented the case to the grand jury. Over a year earlier, in April 2021, Ohio's new standard ground law came into effect. The law states that if a person is in their home or vehicle, they can fire their gun before or instead of retreating. Recordings of the 911 calls, photographs, interviews with Mitchell and Allison, and the doorbell camera were all presented as evidence at the grand jury hearing. The grand jury voted 8-1 not to indict Mitchell Ducro, stating the state's stand your law ground. The grand jury felt that Mitchell Ducro used proper force to defend himself and his family. James Rayl's family was outraged that Mitchell was not indicted. They took to social media to show their disgust. Rayl's sister, Jessica Colbert, wrote, quote, "Mitch shot him in the back and killed him. I hope your days are more miserable than they've ever been. You're a disgusting excuse of a human being along with your daughter," unquote. Colbert accused Mitchell Ducro of lying in wait for her brother. She said that the police were biased and favored the Ducro family because Allison worked as a dispatcher. Colbert also claimed that the investigation was rushed. She pointed out that investigators only stayed at the scene for about 2 hours. The Ducro family listed their house for sale the same day the grand jury decided not to indict Mitchell. Number 1. Jeffrey Roberts. Around 7 p.m. on April 27, 2023, 65-year-old Scott Roberts was eating dinner with his wife, Jody Roberts, in their Ogden, Utah home. Scott was a retired forestry professor. As they were eating, the doorbell rang. Scott went to the door and found his 66-year-old brother, Jeffrey Roberts, on his doorstep. Jeffrey lived over 730 miles away in Long Beach, California. Jeffrey was well liked in his neighborhood. He raised tortoises and loved motorsports such as motocross and NASCAR. He had never married and was childless. For years, the brothers had been estranged. The source of the tension was their mother, Jean. Jeffrey had been caring for Jean in her home in Long Beach. Jeffrey was also taking care of her finances. Jean was diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's. The family grew concerned about the situation. Jean's brother got control of the finances away from Jeffrey. Jean then moved to Ogden to live with Scott and Jody. When Jean moved, she ordered Jeffrey to vacate the home. Jeffrey was bitter over how he was treated. In 2022, Jean left Scott and Tammy's home to live in St. Louis, Missouri to receive help for her dementia and Alzheimer's. About a week before Jeffrey showed up at Scott's home, Scott had made moves to become the executor of Jean's estate. Jeffrey left his home in Long Beach that morning. It took him about 12 hours to drive to his brother's home. This is a recording of the doorbell camera from that day.
Hey, what's up? What are you doing? Came to the case. We came by to see Mom. She's not here? Where's she at? In Missouri? What's she doing there? Well, she's living with Lorinda's mom, who's taking care of her. Really? Yeah. Well, how long's she been there? About a year. Really?
After shooting his brother several times, Jeffrey entered his brother's home. He then shot his sister-in-law, Jody. After shooting everyone in the home, Jeffrey ignited 3 road flares and set the house ablaze. He then walked out the front door. Moments later, he returned to the house with a duffel bag and a shotgun. In the duffel bag was 23 fully loaded handgun magazines and over 150 shotgun shells. A neighbor heard the gunshots and called the police. 5 officers arrived on the scene. Jeffrey then rushed out of the house while firing at the officers. 3 of the officers returned fire. Jeffrey was shot and dropped to the ground. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The 20-second shootout was all recorded on the doorbell camera. 65-year-old Scott Roberts was also dead. His wife, Jody, survived the shooting. She had been shot once before she escaped. She said that thanks to Scott, she survived. He slowed his brother down, giving her enough time to escape. None of the police were injured in the shootout. The police found a 47-page document in Jeffrey's van. He was angry about the situation involving his mother. The police believe that, based on the amount of ammo, he planned to have a violent shootout with the police. The Weber County Attorney's Office Force Investigation Team determined that the officers used proper force. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We just want to remind you we started a channel membership where half the funds will go to solve a cold case. For more information, click on the video that's on the screen now. Well, that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.